Welcome to the Wives in Waiting blended hangout. We are so glad to have you here with us, especially while we're testing out our new technology. This will probably be the way that we come together now for our date nights instead of using the YouTube Google Hangouts. For those of you that have joined us for a hangout before, you know that we use a different format than our regular Bible study calls. If this is your first time joining us, Wives in Waiting is a global ministry for women all over the world. We help you honor your commitment to Christ while we await his return. And I don't know about y'all, but lately I've been kind of praying for that return to come quickly. So what we want to do here is give you, as God's daughters, as his bride, the church, an opportunity to come together to kind of discuss those things that really move beyond just our traditional Bible study, but they give you practical application to different things. We've talked about being a single mother. We've talked about dating, marriage. We've talked about finances. We've talked about all kinds of things. And tonight's topic is one that is dear to my heart because it's a season that I am currently in and have been in for a while. But I want to kind of introduce the topic, and then I'll introduce our panelists for tonight. And then you will have an opportunity to send us your questions if you have questions. We'll be using our social media. You can follow us at Wives in Waiting on Twitter, as well as on Facebook to kind of follow the discussion. You can use the hashtag blended and the hashtag Wives in Waiting to kind of tweet in your questions as we go along. But my name is Shantae Truscott. I am the founder of Wives in Waiting, this wonderful ministry for women. I have been married for 9 years. We have been together for 12 years. And when we say blended tonight, what we're talking about is where there were children from a previous relationship, whether it was from the husband or the wife, or as one of our panelists, she has a blended family, whereas the father of her child is now married to someone other than her. Our family is blended. My husband had a wonderful daughter before we got married, and she turned 18 this year. Cannot believe it. So when we talk about that tonight, that's kind of the perspective I'll be coming from. And then from my own blended family situation, my immediate family was blended as well. So I will hand it over to Sheena to introduce herself next.
Hi, I'm Sheena Love. I'm over the Sister Circle for Lebanon. I have been married for 12 years. And my daughter is 18 now. My oldest is why we're blended. My husband, of course, had her before we were married. We have 2 other children. Ashley is now a freshman at Austin P, 18 years old. And that's it.
Marsha.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marsha Pope, and I am the Sister Circle leader for the Sister Circle here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I have an 18-year-old son, like 12-year-old. I have an 18-year-old son who's a freshman at Middle Tennessee State University. And for 17 years, I co-parented him with his father, and in May of this year, his father got married, and so so now we're blended, so to speak.
And so what we wanted to kind of talk about tonight is this is an area that can really be an area of woundedness, if there are some things that are not healed and revealed before God, but it can also be such a huge area of blessing, a huge area of growth in your walk with God. But we can get really caught up in our flesh sometimes of how things look, how they feel, how other people feel about them, how we feel about them. And our goal tonight is to kind of give you those tools that you need to live in a blended family that is pleasing to God. Because we have lots of examples of blended families all over reality television that really don't give us an example that pleases God. And that's what we're here to do. Once you surrender your life to Christ, you work to live a life that's holy and acceptable to the Lord, even in situations like being in a blended family. So we're kind of going to do tonight is kind of go round robin and have each of the ladies answer a few questions and just kind of share their personal testimony on how different areas have been impacted. So I want to start with Marsha. Just in talking about how the ministry that you're a leader in, how has Wives in Waiting helped you being a mother in a blended family, specifically, like you said, because things have changed recently for you and your family dynamic?
The one thing I would say Wives in Waiting has helped me do in terms of my role as a mother, and especially my role now that my son has a stepmother, is it helped me establish my identity. I think one of the things that can make a woman feel intimidated when her child's father pursues another relationship with another woman or marries another woman, it's sort of calls into question, like, who are you to your child now? How do you share? Are you certain that your child is still going to, put you as the priority? But I think prior to his dad courting his stepmother, and even before I knew about that relationship, I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to really find out, discover who Marsha is in relation to Ty, as a mother, and, to myself, and just realizing that I don't have a reason to be intimidated, by anybody. Who I am is who I am, and the relationship that I had with his father, that didn't define me, whether we were together or, aren't together. So I think that would be the biggest thing that I would say. And just really teaching me how to walk, how to be Christ-like. You know what I mean? Like interacting with somebody, and just really, more than anything, wanting Christ to show through me. And so that's something that you have to learn how to do. And so I think the principles and the root of what we do with Wives in Waiting really, really helped establish that for me. So,
Sheena, what about you? How is the ministry that you're a leader in, how has it helped you in your situation as the mother and wife in a blended family?
For me, I would have to say, and I guess even speaking for me, I'll speak and talk about Ashley too, and how it's helped, because Ashley also leads. I feel like Wives in Waiting has given us a safe place. And if I can explain, like, when you are in a blended family, there are so many different issues or situations that might come up that you necessarily can't share with everybody. You have to protect your relationship. You have to protect the child that's involved. You have to protect your family. So even sometimes when there's like issues or things that have gone on with us, I can't necessarily pick up the phone and call my mom about things that I would call her about normally, because you have to have some protection when it comes to the things that you share, because things might be, I don't know, like, you just have to keep some of those things sacred, the same way you do in your everyday life when it comes to your family, when it comes to your marriage, when it comes to your child and sharing her with another family, like that. So Wives in Waiting for us has given us the sisterhood and the friendships to where you know that when you are sharing, when you do feel like there's something you need to talk about, when there is something that you go to praying for yourself, but when you do need someone to be praying with you, it gives you a safe place to be able to share and do that. And I think that's what the biggest thing that it's done for me. Also, what Wives in Waiting allowed me to do is to be able to share some of my experiences with some of the other leaders who are going through the same thing. You know what I mean? So, or even with some people who might be dating or thinking about dating someone who's married with a child. It's given me the opportunity to be able to share some private things so that they might be helped. Also for Ashley, it's given her a full, panel of other girls and bigs that she can talk to about issues that she might not necessarily want to talk about with me, because I am, the parent in the situation. So I would say that it wholeheartedly has given us the safe place to share. It's given the sisterhood to be able to have somebody to lean on, to pray with. When before I've been in situations where I've had to kind of keep those things to myself and only talk to God. So.
I think for me, it has been a place of conviction for me, not only because of my relationship with God, but also leading a ministry for women. It has been a place, and I'm gonna be totally honest. My prayer is I don't cry tonight, since y'all can see us. But that God really convicts me of, how can I lead a ministry for women, helping them honor their commitment to God, and initially have so much tension in my relationship with Jania's mother and how I viewed her. Because the way that I view women, I say, is that I view them the way God views them. And is that just the women who love me, who support this ministry and who clap every time I do something that they think is amazing? Or do I truly love women that need what God is offering to me? The same grace and salvation that I need, the same mercy that I need, the same compassion that I need. Am I willing to extend that, no matter how I feel and no matter who the person might be? And it has given me a sense of accountability as well. And because I have a relationship with women like Marsha that, are the birth mother to a child who is now also part of a blended family, and to hear her perspective and to get her wisdom, to be able to understand, like, even though I may be caught up in my feelings in the moment, that just because I feel it doesn't mean it's right. And on the other side of this, there is a child as well as a mother who is trying to blend just as much as I can. And I even think about the biblical examples of blended families. So of course, back then, the circumstances of blended families were a little different than what we're talking about today, but there's biblical examples. You have Hannah and Peninnah. You have Sarah, Abraham, and Hagar, which was a whole situation in and of itself. You have Rachel and Leah. You have a lot of blended families biblically. And if I'm living my life fully to please God, I need to be able to go back to the Word of God, even about this portion of my life and this position of my life, not just in a way that, again, that it vindicates how I feel, but what does God really have to say about this? So, biblically, blended families is nothing new. So you guys can definitely participate via chat as well on your Zoom feature, as well as on the question and answer. So I wanted to kind of give you guys a background again of how what we do from a ministry perspective is not just about your relationship with your husband, which is a whole other thing in and of itself, even in this dynamic, but it's also about how you relate to other people when you are blending. The Bible says that when a man takes his wife, he leaves his family and cleaves to his wife. Well, when you are blended, that cleaving is not just between man and wife. You are cleaving with everything that comes along with them, including their child, including, for Marsha's sake, when Tyson's father took a wife, they are family. And that was a huge revelation to me, that I am not just marrying my husband and gaining a child. Her mother is also now part of my family. And we'll talk about that as we move forward, because that was a huge game changer for me to understand in this whole scheme of things. So, Sheena, I want you to kind of talk to us about how you made a decision, how you came to the decision to marry someone that already had a child before you guys got married. Because I know sometimes in church that can be pretty taboo. But how you came to that decision and how you had peace about marrying someone who already had a child.
I don't think, I think I just shared this with Marsha. That wasn't really an issue with me. I know some people are like, well, I just talked to someone the other day who was like, I won't marry someone who has a child. That wasn't really an issue for me. I think because I always longed to have kids and wanted to have children. There was a while I was at a church service one time where the man of God like prophesied to me and said, he said, even if you don't have children of your own, you'll be a good mother. And I think there was something inside of me a long time ago that I wouldn't be able to have children. So when I met you and he already had a daughter, I knew right away that I knew first he was the man that God had placed and sent for me. I knew he was my husband. So if it meant that he came with a child already, and I was cool with that. It never was an issue for me, or I never battled with whether or not it was okay or if I with that. So
Sheena was way more mature than me. Clearly, because when I had my little list, and those of you that have followed me for a while, I have talked about frequently how the Lord had to handle me and my expectations in my list, because my list was not based on, when I say list, I mean like the list of things that I wanted in a husband, was not based on, God's plan for my life or God's plan for a husband. It was very, very carnal when you looked at it. But like one of the things near the top of my list is I did not want to marry someone that had a child or children, and I didn't want to marry someone who had been married before. And those of you that know us, neither one of those are true. So it was really difficult for me because I was very selfish. Like our carnal nature, our flesh desires to please self. So all I kept thinking about was, I don't want to deal with the drama that may come into my life based on, having these extra people that I have to deal with on a regular basis. And I didn't even realize at the time how I was giving life to certain situations before they even happened. Like my assumption was just because someone has a child or have been married before, that there would be drama. So already I had a preconceived notion of that. And it really was a moment where God spoke to me as well. And those of you too who follow Wise and Waiting know that I don't have children that I have given birth to. So God has given me an opportunity to share in mothering one of the most amazing people that I've ever met in my life. But the Lord had to deal with me on why I did not desire to marry someone. I wasn't open to a family that didn't meet my criteria. And it was based on some of what I dealt with when I grew up and what I saw from a blended family and how things happened in our home. So for me, it was definitely a divine decision that God had to give me peace about. And that's definitely also how I knew that this was the man that I was supposed to marry, because like the two things, again, that I said I did not want, he had. And I am grateful for that because of what that has added to my life. But it definitely came from a place of surrender to God, because that's not something that I was looking for. So Marsha, how did you handle, like you said, you co-parented for a while with your son's father, and then, recently he made a decision to get married. And we talked about, like, we're going to be open and honest tonight. How did his decision to get married impact you?
Gosh, I had a bevy of emotions. And even earlier today, I was thinking about this question and just kind of pondering it in my mind. And I would say the first thing, because throughout the 17 years, he's dated other women, and there was one woman who I just kind of like just knew at some point they would eventually get married. However, they didn't, and so I guess in the back of my mind, I thought, okay, like at some point he's gonna do it. And for a while, he was just kind of very low key. Like I knew he wasn't dating the girl that he had dated, prior, and I just hadn't heard, anything. And so when my son started mentioning, Margarita is my son's stepmother's name. When he started, mentioning Margarita more and more and more, I was like, okay, so this must be getting serious. And the dynamic between little Tyson and I, it was a sweet moment because he told me first. He felt like he wanted to be the one to tell me because he didn't want me to be surprised. And so, but he swore me to secrecy, like, you can't tell. So I was stuck for a little while because I, of course, I couldn't go to Big Tyson and say, hey, like, I heard you getting married. And so I had to kind of keep it on the hush. But eventually when he came to, when Big Tyson did tell me that he was getting married, I saw a side of him that I had never seen before. He was so tender and so, just his normal, he was not his normal self in describing her. And so I was just like, oh my goodness, to see this side of him. And then another thing, over the course of the years in praying for him and just wanted his life to be good as Tyson's father, it's a manifestation of my prayers. I didn't necessarily say like, Lord, send him, X or whatever, but to see how his life over these 17 years, how he's married, and they just bought a beautiful home, and I stopped by their house for a little while, Thanksgiving, and just seeing him be this domestic, man is such, it's like, if you ever, well, you met him, but if you ever like had an opportunity to like sit down and talk to him, you would see his life has changed. And so and then, the enemy tried to creep in, a little bit too, and to be like, okay, he married her, and he's even said like, we have similarities, personality wise, and the enemy will try to, let that slide. I mean, if you're not careful, that can kind of play on your emotions. But at the end of the day, I was happy, I was happy for him, and I think overall, the biggest thing over these years of whether he had a girlfriend or now that he's married, it was important to me to give Tyson the space to like and to have feelings and to connect with someone that his dad was involved with. That was one of the most important things to me, that I gave him that space to do that. So it's been a blessing. So yeah.
Wow.
I know. I mean, and
so good.
I think, it's important. I shared with Marsha before we went live tonight of how important her testimony is, because I think there is not always, but there is frequently a negative portrayal, and excuse me for a lack of a better word, because I hate this term, of the baby mama. And to know that is not always the case, and even if it is, there's always other factors, and we have to be very, very conscious of. And I love what Marsha said, like that she gave her son space to care for a woman that his father cared for. And Sheena, I'll give you an opportunity to answer this too. When you are dating someone or courting, because I know we love Jesus here, we like to say that word. When you are courting someone who has a child that's their birth child, and I know sometimes too that the men in our lives will also, hi Ariana, the men in our lives will be taking care of children that are not even necessarily their birth children, but people that were part of their lives prior to meeting you. It is very important when you are the newcomer, when you are the new chick on the scene, especially if it's getting serious, that you respect the boundaries that are already in place. When you become someone's wife and you enter into a role of parenthood with their child, you have to be very conscious of what's already been established, and then how you use your favor. Because when you get married, you're a good thing, right? That the favor that you bring to your husband's life, what do you add to the situation? What do you add to the blending? Are you something that's going to help smooth that blending out? Are you coming in like rocks needing to be chopped up, and it's not something that you work hard on? I don't know, for us when we were dating, because I did come from a blended family, I did not want to force myself on Janiyah. I did not want to make her like me. I wanted to give her that same space and that same courtesy that Lewis had in getting to know me. I wanted to give her that opportunity, because when I met her, she was 6 years old. So here she is, her parents have now not been together for 3 years, and I'm the first woman that she meets other than her mother. And I had to be mature enough, because I was also a very young woman. I had to be mature enough to say, this is a child that needs protecting. She does not need to be forced to like me or forced to love me, because if he found something to love about me, she will too, if I'm being genuine and giving her that opportunity to grow and learn who I am too. And Sheena, I don't know how involved you were with Ashley when you were dating before you got married, and how you helped develop the relationship with Ashley.
So Ashley was, she was 6 when we got married. So dating, she was had just turned 5 when I met her for the first time. And the thing I love about my husband is that he was Ashley and had not been together for probably 2-3 years prior to us dating. So Ashley was already used to having, time with her mom, time with her dad, her house with her mom, a house at her dad's, where he was mom, you know, he was a daddy, and he had a relationship with her long before me. So when I Ashley, I think the first time, so Q and I met a long time ago in college. We were friends way back before we even started dating. So when we did start dating, he was 2 hours away, which meant that all of the talking and dating kind of was like over the phone. So the first real face-to-face date we had, he showed up at my doorstep with Ashley with him. So, and it was a total surprise. I was like, oh, Ashley's with, you know, like, but she, even in that moment, that was new for her, because he didn't, like, I was the first person that she had been introduced to, like you said, when it comes to like another woman other than her mom. So in dating, I was, you know, everything we've done when we were dating was kid friendly. She was alone. She had a chance to meet me, to get to know me for herself. She loved me right off the bat. You know what I mean? So it was kind of the same kind of dynamic as what you had. I gave her the opportunity and the space to be able to kind of get to know me for herself. She was really protective because she's a daddy's girl right off the bat. I remember at this first initial date, like they came after we, you know, went back to my apartment, we were having some grapes. And she said, no, you have to, if you're going to give my daddy grapes, like something like this. So she was already, like, she was the woman of that house. So if you were going to get to know her daddy, then you didn't have a choice but to kind of get to know her first. You had to kind of go through her. So right off the bat, I was involved with her while we were dating. And just like you, I gave her the space and the opportunity to get to know me, the respect for her to get to know me and not push myself on her. But I mean, it was just a natural, right from the beginning. She's the most beautiful person I know, strongest person I know, and we, you know, it was good from the beginning.
And I think, Marsha, you kind of touched on this too, but how involved, you talked about giving Tyson an opportunity to like who his father married, like watching their relationship develop, you know, how did that, you know, impact your thoughts and views about the man about the woman that Tyson's father chose to marry?
The one thing I can say about Big Tyson, is that over the years when he has been seriously involved with women, you know, whatever woman it was, he always managed to involve himself with a woman who liked kids and was very drawn to him. So earlier, when Tyson was a baby, I worked weekends, and so he would often have him for the entire weekend because I worked 12-hour shifts, and so it was just easier for him to keep him, you know, for the whole weekend. And I remember one day I was dropping him off. Tyson was probably like 5 or 6, first, second grade. I was dropping him off at his dad's house, and I got to the house and walked up to the steps, and I was about to ring the doorbell. And at the same time, one of the women that he was dating was pulling up in the driveway, so she pulled up behind me. And she got out of the car, and Tyson saw her. And when he saw her, he ran and like leaped off the porch and ran and like jumped up into her arms. And the first thing she said, "Do you have homework?" And, you know, he was so excited, and did both of their faces. And I thought, you know, here I am, I'm working 12-hour shifts, and he's involved with the woman. I hope it's somebody who will fill in the gap for me, you know, while I'm not there. Now fast forward to Margarita. I think one of the things that has like really sincerely made the transition kind of so graceful for us is because she always, when Tyson would talk about her, he would always talk about, you know, her doing stuff around school supplies. You know, she went and got this, and Miss Margarita cooked this, and they like love and hip hop. And so That's their thing. They watch, they sit up in the bed together and eat spinach dip and watch, Love and Hip Hop. And so she's, even when she talks about him to me, she's always like, that's my baby boy. And she's posted pictures of them doing stuff, activities. And so she's always tried to include me in that. If she posts a picture, like she'll tag me, in the picture on Facebook. So she has a son as well. And so last year, New Year's Eve, she was dropping Tyson off at the house, and they happened to come in, her and her son and my son all came in at the same time. And when they were getting ready to go, her son said, "Oh, we should group hug." So we hugged each other. And I think it was just her willingness to, regardless to what she had heard about me or what she thought, her preconceived notions of what, if there was going to be baby mom, because that was the element that she had to trust, that there was nothing, that I wasn't going to be trying to, so she had to let her guard down, so to speak too. And she was very receptive, and just, it seems like kind of off the bat, I think we kind of both knew we were safe with each other.
Yeah.
So that's been one of the biggest things. And when he went away to college, I wanted her to know that that was something that we were all experiencing together. And so I made it a point to, tell her, hey, like, when we go and move him in his dorm room, you have to be there, so that we all can go together. So I think it's just, like, making sure that we both know, like, I know who you are. I would never disrespect, you. And even for Tyson, Big Tyson, like, making sure he understood, like, I would never, disrespect your marriage and your relationship. Or, like I said, it's been very dear to my heart to make sure, even when Tyson was young, to give him that space, because kids don't know how to rationalize that. And they feel, if you don't create a space for them to feel comfortable, they feel guilty. They feel guilty because they like another woman, and because they don't know how that's going to make you feel. So their loyalty, they don't know how to balance that. And so I never wanted him to have to exhaust his little emotions trying to do big people stuff. You know what I mean? So I think that was always kind of something in the present, very, in the forefront for me, to give him that space, but teach him, if he's involved with somebody and they're not treating you right, you tell, you tell me, but at the same time, giving him that space to do that. So
that's good. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Sheena.
That speaks volumes, because even though I gave Ashley that space to get to know me, to love me, she never really had that. She didn't have the same support when it came from her mom. And that's what, as big people, we can handle that. You know what I mean? That's what has always tore me up when it comes to Ashley's mother, is because she's always felt like she had to choose. You know what I mean? Like she had to, she never really understood why she couldn't just love us both. You know what I mean? And that's hard, and it's hard to watch. It's hard for her. It was always hard for her to maneuver, like, in Sheena and Daddy's house, it's okay for me to love my mama and to have feelings for her, but then it's okay for me to love Sheena, whereas she didn't get that in both households. So to watch a little person try to maneuver those emotions and not know what to do with them, or, not know when they could, like, she couldn't just necessarily go to her mom's house and be like, ooh, me and Sheena did this week, or this is what we did, because we always had shared custody up until the time she was like in 5th grade. We had shared custody. So she would be, at our house for a week, and she would be with her mom for a week. And so she was back and forth and having to always maneuver those emotions. So when you have that, you have everybody that's an adult in the situation knowing that you want to have one contactor, one thing that you're supposed to keep straight, one person that you're supposed to like to engage, and it's okay to love everybody. It's huge to be able to have that, because we never had that.
And I think an important thing too, like we talked about, creating space for your new child to get to know you, but also creating a safe space for them to love their parents.
Yes.
Whatever condition their parents' relationship is currently in. I think sometimes as the wife, we are so protective, as we should be, of our homes, of our relationship with our husband and our relationship with our new children. But what's also extremely important is that we realize again that we are all a family, whether it's functioning the way that it needs to function or not. So your job as the helpmate is to help everyone in the situation, help make that blending as smooth as possible, because children don't have a say-so in who their mother or their father wants to be. That's a decision that adults make, and that children are brought into that. So if as the wife or the mother that we are not the catalyst in the blending, and I tell people all the time, like, God is not going to, when you meet him, when you go to heaven, God is not going to say, you know what, Marsha, what decision did Big Tyson make? Or what decision did Rita make? He's not going to say, what decision did Ashley's mother make? He's not going to ask me what decision Lewis made, what decision Jania's mother made. He's going to ask me what part I played in our family coming together and blending to glorify him. The Bible says that anyone can love the people that love them. Anybody can do that. Even people who don't believe in God do that. But how are we treating the people that we don't necessarily have that, warm and fuzzy feeling about? And it's not even necessarily being enemies, because we need to strike that down. We only have one enemy, and he's the enemy of our soul. But where there's some friction, there's some tension. And again, we talk about blending. I want you guys to think about a cake. And when you have to blend a cake, you are taking some very distinct things and making them look very different than how they started out to create something that even looks totally different from those products. So those processes you have to go through to beat the eggs and whip all that stuff. And I know for me, that is exactly what blending is like. It is like whipping my flesh constantly, because it is not a decision between you, your spouse, and your child, or you, the father of your child, and your child. There is a whole other adult typically that is involved in decision making that really is your relationship. Like for Marsha, it is so beautiful that she considers the relationship between her son's father and his wife. But that is not necessarily her main focus. Her main focus is her child. So Sheena, I know that you guys have added children to your family since the blending, and I know Marsha talked about Tyson's stepmother also has children that she has brought in, but how has that also played a role in your blending and adding two more little ones to the family?
So so I have two younger kids, other than Ashley. Ashton is 10 and Aiden is 5. And when it comes to them and their relationships, it's good. What gets a little hairy and different for us and our family is because they are young. They don't always necessarily understand, like why we have to share Ashley, or, if it's like weekends that she's away or holidays, like this time of year, it's hard. It's real hard. Like Ashton is really close to her. Aiden, he just go with the flow. Ashley's here, or she's, but Ashton is at an age to where they're really close. So I remember him one day asking, or not quite understanding why Ashley had 2 moms, or why she had to go away at Christmas time, or, why she not waking up with Christmas, with us this year, or so that gets a little hard. And the older he gets, he understands, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't, that it's not hard. I've seen Ashley, even now that she's off to college, she makes sure she's taking a little bit more special time with them, spending time with them, because that's the things that just kind of get hard. One, that she's not here like full time or all the time, or weekends. Like just this Thanksgiving, she's always trying to make sure she makes everybody happy and she sees everybody. And we encourage her to do that. Like we encourage her to or to do the things that she wants to do. So however she wants to split up Christmas breaks or Thanksgiving breaks, she's able to do that. But blending for us sometimes it's hard because the boys don't necessarily understand, like, why she's away, or when it comes to making sure everybody's schedules are on the same page. Why can't she be here for my special birthday? If it's a time that she has allotted the time to be away, then that kind of gets a little hard. And we just try to make every single event or opportunity, do the best with it, what we can, and explain explain it as we go, but it's hard for them sometimes.
I know for us, we have not added any more little people to our family since blending, and it has been an interesting dynamic for us because Janiyah hasn't wanted siblings, and her mother doesn't have any other children either. And it was really thinking about how that was going to impact her as she continued to grow in age and now being an adult, which is so crazy to say, but now being an adult, and how your family, just because your children grow up, just because the children involved in the blending grow up, does not mean that that blending stops. Because I know for me particularly, my mom already had my sister before her and my dad got married. And even just navigating those waters of where my sister would be on certain holidays, and even as an adult, now when we have family gatherings, what does that word actually mean? What does it really mean? And again, trying as being committed to Christ and what role you're supposed to play and the influence that you're supposed to bring to your family, and continuing to die to your flesh regularly when you do have other children that are involved. And I know, Marsha, you brought up that Marguerite has a son. So how has that, because Tyson not only gained a new mother, he also gained a brother. How did that impact the blending of your families?
For me, I think it's had a really positive impact on him. Tyson was the only child and the only grandchild for the first 13 years of his life, 14 years. Big Tyson has another child who is 4. And so up until that time, it was just him, and he's always wanted, because of his personality, he's, always wanted like somebody else, to play with it. Being the only child.
Did she freeze?
Never, had another time was gonna, be like for him. And some people have always asked, like, oh, you're only gonna have, one child, and that's, kind of lonely. It's gonna be lonely for him. But his little brother now has really been an opportunity for him to kind of be that big brother that he wanted to. And so Braxton, who is his stepbrother, kind of slid in the middle. So now it's little Tyson, Braxton, and then the baby underneath. So it's been funny, 3 boys. And I think the sweetest thing has been Braxton and Tyson would make a thing to come to Wednesday night teen Bible study. And so that was a really sweet time for me to kind of see them interact. When he went away to college, they, kind of talked about what that would look like, and maybe Braxton getting to go and spend the weekend with him, and that whole boy bickering thing. At first they were like, oh, they on each other's nerves, and then they texting, all the time. And it's been funny. Big Braxton thinks I'm funny, so he's always cracking jokes and like making fun of me. So it's sweet to see that little interaction between them. So yeah, it's been fun.
And I think what's important too, because I want to talk about, again, we kind of talked about how the blending happens, but in any relationship with any other human being that's just as flawed and imperfect as we are, there will be conflict. That is a guarantee. And we know the term that we always use, oil and water don't. And the fact of the matter is, you don't get to choose in these situations. You don't get to choose how you are going to relate to everyone. You don't get to choose how everyone else handles different things. You don't get to choose. So I think what a lot of people have as a burning question is, when you are blending, when you again are living a life that's pleasing to God, because I think that is a huge difference between what we're talking about tonight and what you will hear in the world. Because there are tons of television shows and talk shows that will tell you, how you should handle certain situations. But at the end of the day, you have to live a life that's worthy of the calling that's on your life. You have to live in a way that reflects who you are and being a light in darkness, because sometimes blending can be a very dark time. So I want to talk about, like, how do you handle conflict And how do you rely on your relationship with God in those times where there is conflict? And I'll have Marsha go first, because I think this is a huge, can be a huge turning point. I know it was for me. But Marsha, if you can kind of share like how your faith helps you handle conflict and how you actually handle conflict in a blended family.
The times that it's been really, really rough, those were really opportunities for me to, it like put me on Front Street. Like, are you really, gonna be who you say you are? Are you gonna try? Are you not going to resort to what you see, in the world? Because a lot of times people were so, like, they didn't necessarily understand how we could even, do this. Or they felt like when there was issues come up, well, you should just handle it, this way, or you should just call him and say, now, and why is your, you don't even know this girl, just all of that. And I had to really like make a choice to filter out that stuff and realize that they might have been coming from their place of whatever the situation they were going through, and understand that it could be done differently. Like, if it was going to be, and I remember even saying to God, times like, if this is going to be different, if anybody can see that this is be different, like, teach me how to do it. Like, show me how to do it. I don't know. I want to go off. I want to, so like, show me how to do it, and really just asking him and dying to what I want to do, what Marsha wanted to do. And even when it was just like pressure from somebody else to feel like I needed to handle things a certain way, to really to really handle it the way Christ would want us. And I didn't do it all right all the time, so I just want to make sure that that's clear. I didn't always make the best decisions. Sometimes when I should have spoke up, I didn't. And when I should have been quiet, I wasn't. And I think too, I would have to say this, one of the things that has helped a lot is Big Tyson's mother. She was very, very integral in helping me to see that regardless to what happened, sort of back to what you had said earlier, I'm the only one that will have to give an account to how I handle a situation. And she told me that before I ever gave birth to Tyson. She told me, this is your life. Like, this is going to be life for you, whether he participates, whether he doesn't. In the good times, in the bad times, you have to be responsible for what you do. And I think that has stuck with me, in a way that helped in those, like you said, in those dark times when things, weren't good. That's been the biggest thing, to keep in the forefront, like, you only get one shot.
Right.
You only get one shot at this, and the world will tell you you have time and opportunity, and that the way you handle things doesn't matter, but it does. And the biggest thing that they don't tell you is that it doesn't have to be that way. I found it so interesting that I've spent more time defending why we don't have baby mama drama. It's weird. People like, so I remember when we went to go and get the prom, the vehicle for Tyson for prom, we were all together. And the sales lady was like, so whose child, who, whatever. We were like, our baby, like, he's going to prom. And she was like, what? We're like, like, don't worry about it. It's good. So overcoming that, stigma of what people think is supposed to be like. And you have to make a choice to show people differently. So.
Sheena, what about you?
Lord help us. I mean, I just listened to Marsha, and that's great, because like, I feel like this is probably, I know that I think it's another question you're gonna answer later, but this is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I would not trade our life. I would not trade our relationship. I would do it all over again tomorrow. But I would be lying to anybody who's on this cast to say that this has been the hardest thing that we, and I won't just say that we have ever done in our life. Because I'm a very, very mild-mannered person. I will give the benefit of the doubt to a person who's standing in front of me doing the craziest thing. I have, and God is gonna have to help me, but I feel like that in this entire relationship, in our whole life of blending, I've tried to be nothing but sane and offer the best, be the best person I could be when it comes to, and when I say that, I mean like offering the kind of peace to give to Ashley's mom and her other family, to work with them, to do everything that there is to do. And so the biggest thing that has helped me with my faith is to stay on my face. It's the only, absolute only way that we have made it through the craziest and hardest times, is to stay on my face. Even now, I have to stay on my face. Like in the beginning of when we got married, Shantae was like, that wasn't me because I was mature. I was excited that he already had a child. You know what I mean? Like I told Marsha all the time, or I told her before, that Ashley made me an instant mama. And I was excited about that. I welcomed that with everything in me. But what I didn't know, what was gonna come, like what was gonna come from that, like what was gonna come. And it wasn't just me. Like I think a lot of people feel like it's just the drama with the women in the relationship. It was way before me. Like it was happening with her dad before I was even in the picture. The test of my faith, the going through the hard times, the everything is because we got through it, and I'm still here sane, and she's still sane, and my husband is still sane. It's because I stayed on my face. I have a choice. I have a choice but to stay on my face, for her, for protection, for peace. I could stay on this cast all night long and talk about all the craziness. But when I'm telling you is that what got us through, every time there was a chance to go to him, to give it to him and literally lay her and our family and our whole situation at his feet. And she's 18 years old, and I'm still laying her and the whole situation and mom and the whole thing still at his feet. Still at his feet. Still at his feet. And when I say that, I'm saying that like I want this whole session to give somebody some hope that like I'd be sitting and telling a lie to say that this is easy. But I'm telling you, from the time Ashley is 18 years old, and when it comes to being the bigger person, and Marsha trying to have their relationship and trying to make sure I didn't, and like I'm gonna be who I am. I'm gonna be mama to her in our house. I'm gonna give her everything she needs. I'm gonna be who I need to be with her. I'm not going to water that down at all. But I always wanted to make sure that I didn't overstep my bounds, that I didn't, paint a picture like I'm trying to take anybody's place or do anything, other than what I'm supposed to, and be the person who I am to her. But it's the hardest thing ever, because still we do not have the relationship blended wise. And we're talking about blended, like Shantae said, we're talking about blended in the aspect that it's all of us. It's siblings with her mom, her brothers that are there in that family. That's what blending is. So when you always have the force of opposition, you know what I mean? Then you just gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta make sure that you just give it all to God, stay on your face, and pray that someday that's gonna happen. You know, and then in the meantime, I couldn't ever allow that to distract what we had. So we always try to make sure we lining up with what the word says, what God says, not just considering our feelings, not considering just what it works for us, but making sure that in the middle, this one person who's teetered and tottered in the middle is okay. So staying on my face and giving it to God and laying her at his feet, and the whole dynamic at his feet every single day. Because with us, you never know from one day to the next, from 1 second to the next, how good it's going to be or how dramatic it's going to be, literally. Staying on my face. If I could give anybody any advice, even in crazy times, even in the hard times, even in them times where you're just like, Lord, I don't know what else to do. I don't know who else I can be. I don't know what the example. Staying on my face. That's it.
Definitely want to echo Sheena's statements, because I did not know that from the beginning, and just learning to give up the right to defend yourself when you, like, our nature is to protect us, that we want to protect ourselves. And when you get into a situation where there is so much brokenness and so much woundedness and disappointment from broken marriages, because that's what divorce creates. It creates woundedness, it creates hurt, it creates all these things. And my first nature is when something is said about me, or what kind of wife I am, or what kind of mother I am to someone else's child, like your nature is to defend yourself. And learning, like, that God will fight your battles, but him fighting them is not the way that you would fight them. And learning that how not to add to the stress of your family, and how not to become, someone that's just stirring the pot when you feel that you have every right to. I totally echo that, Shane, because I learned that the hard way, because I wanted to always defend myself. I wanted to always defend my actions and complain to my husband, tell him how I didn't understand, and not realizing the influence that I had in my home. If I would just exercise that if I would get out of my feelings and get out of my flesh, and what Shantae wanted and how Shantae wanted things to go. And I wanted this picture perfect family so bad. And in my mind, I just kept seeing, her mother as someone who was ruining an opportunity for me to have that, instead of realizing, like, God was giving me an opportunity to truly love like he does, to truly be who I say that I am, a woman who helps women honor their commitment to God. And if I'm only able to do that in situations where things are going the way I want them to go, then I'm not being a light. I'm being sugar, and I'm blending in, and to be salt, and to be different, and to lead other people to Christ. It's every aspect of our life. It's not just church on Sunday. It's not just Bible study comments. It's in my day-to-day decisions, and really learning for me, like, to take every single thought captive. Then when my mind starts wondering about what she's thinking, or why she's doing that, or why she thinks that's right, or why she's hurting this person, to take that captive and submit that to God and see what he has to say about it. If I should be praying about it instead of gossiping about it, if I should be journaling, if I should just be crying out to him, if I even need to speak anything about it to my husband, because that is what was a big issue for us, is not just our relationship with her mother, but also how that then impacted our relationship with each other and with her. Because here I am thinking, oh, I don't ever speak poorly about her mother in front of her. But when I had an opportunity to minister to my husband, because that's what wives do, I was not taking advantage of that. It was another way for me to complain and talk his ear off, and not be a safe place, and not be a place of peace. So I would say, like, to echo Sheena, just to remember who God says you are. Don't just remember who you are, because your flesh is going to rise up. And like Sheena said, there is daily. And I am grateful that we have a testimony of progress in our blending. But it is a daily decision. And again, that you don't have control over what anyone does or how they may be feeling on a particular day or how they choose to handle things. But God expects this standard from you that does not change. God doesn't say, I'm going to give you a pass because you're blending. He doesn't say that. God doesn't say, I'm giving you a pass because you got your feelings hurt. God doesn't say, I'm giving you a pass because you feel like she lost her mind. God is not giving you a pass because your husband wants to protect his child. So there are some things that he does not say that you want. God is not giving us any pass. We're not getting that. His expectation of us is consistent, and he expects for us to always shine his light. And that doesn't change no matter what side of the fence you're on. Because I know for some women, Marsha has been blessed with a woman who respects her as the mother of her husband's child. But sometimes, you do have the wicked stepmother. So it's not always the case that you have women like the women that are on this call. Sometimes everyone has not matured and healed enough to be in situations like this, but they're in it anyway. So I want you guys to keep that in mind as we share that it's a conscious decision to say, I am going to make this work. As much as it depends on me, I'm going to be at peace with all men, with all women, as much as it depends on me. So I want to ask Sheena, like, what are some of the scriptures that you rely on? I didn't put this in the question, but what are some of the scriptures that you rely on? And I can go first, actually, since I didn't prep anybody for this question. That we rely on to be that safe place. And I know for me, like my life verse is Jeremiah 29:11, that says that God's plans for you are to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a hope in the future. But as I grew in my relationship with God, I learned like that promise that God made to the Israelites was after they had been in captivity in Babylon. And I have to remember that God's promises to me when we're having amazing days as a family and when we're having not so amazing days as a family, that his promise is consistent, that he has promised to never leave us and never forsake us. I mean, and there have been days where I have said, where are you, God? Where are you in this? Like, why are you allowing this? Why is this happening? Why can't we just go to dinner and not have stuff? Why can't it just be that we sit down and have a dinner and we can make plans and things go as planned? And he's saying, like, I'm still there, even in that. And I think we have this perception of what family is supposed to be like because we fall for that idea of what family means. And if we look at the family of God, we honestly should not be surprised at our own individual family situation. So I know for me, like, that's my life verse. And also Psalm 119:71, it says, it was good for me to be afflicted so that I could learn your decrees. And I'm not going to lie with that either. Like, there are some days that saying, like, it's good for us to go through the stuff that we've gone through is a sacrifice in and of itself. But I know that us blending has grown me in a way in my relationship with God that I never even imagined that I needed to grow. You don't know that your love walk is challenged until when. You don't know that you're not walking in a way that's pleasing.
Amen.
So I don't know if you guys have any scriptures that you want to share that you rely on.
Amen. So I want to say something before I go to the scripture. Our scripture is like, I remember taking Ashley's hand when she was like 7 years old. And there was something that was going on that was like, like mama wasn't agreeing. He, has never ever liked me. She and Ashley's and my husband were like on the phone and going back and forth. And it was the first time I ever did it, but I took her hand and I took her into another room and I said, this has nothing to do with us. Like, I looked literally, hold your chin up, look, and we looked face to face. And I said, this has nothing to do with us. I want you to know, like, I would always make sure that I would say to her, this is not your fault. You have nothing to do with this. This is like between us adult people, So in this moment, we're going to take ourselves out of this situation. And I want you to always know this has nothing to do with you. And I wrote down the quote that her and I say. And I think, Marsha, the last time you was at my house, you saw it on the board in my house. And it says, the will of God will never take you where the grace of God cannot keep you. And the scripture that is my go-to scripture for all of us, for Ashley and I especially, is Psalms 91. He who dwells in the secret place of his Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in him I will trust. Surely he shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous and pestilence. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler, and shall not be afraid of the terror or night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor the destruction that lays waste to noonday. And I could go on and on, but that's our go-to scripture for our family. It's Psalm 91. He's going to protect you wherever you are. He's going to take care of you with whatever's going on, and it's going to work out. It's out of our hands.
What about you, Marsha?
I would have to say Romans 8:28. There were times, like I said, in just for things would work out, in our lives, co-parenting, whatever Big Tyson was going through, whatever I was going through in my life. And even when it didn't seem like the situation was good, or it was good in terms of the way that I wanted it to be, I have to rely on that even when it's not good, God is still working.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think, and I had to let go of what God's good is. And I had to say, do I want Marsha's good, or do I want what God wants is good? Because God is going to consider everybody in the situation. And he's going to consider, and like I said, I've always tried to keep Tyson in the forefront. I knew I wanted the best for him. And that meant I had to step back and realize that if the best for him didn't always involve me doing and me directing and, putting things the way that I wanted to be, that I wanted his good. I want his good for my life. I want his good for Tyson's life. I want good for all of us involved. And if it's not good yet, that means God is still working, because he's gonna make it better.
And I think even being cognizant of like people saying time heals all wounds. That's not true. Time does not heal all wounds. God does. God heals all wounds. And not carrying around that woundedness and that bitterness, and also that spirit of competition that can form, you have to rebuke that.
That's exhausting. That is exhausting. It will wear you out. Yes.
It is. And you have to call stuff what it is. Even in your own life, you need to check yourself. You need to say, Lord, search me. Search me. Because again, when you meet him and you have your secret time with him, God is not telling you about her, your husband, or your kid. He's telling you about you. Lord, search me. Is there anything in me? Am I holding resentment? Because it's so easy. Because again, you're going through your day-to-day of parenting, of trying to blend, that you rush stuff under the rug. And then the next thing you know, something that's a small thing, you have now made into a big thing. Because it's now become a competition between you and her, or whoever the her is, or you and the child, who's ever the child. It's now a competition when it should be a collaboration. And all the enemy wants to do, like I said, is get you to think that your war is between flesh and blood, when it's not. Nobody that you see, no matter how hurt you are, that is not your enemy. So you can keep believing the story and just ignore it, instead of just submitting it to God. And again, that's hard to take your hands off something and hand it over, like Marsha said, to trade what you have planned, what you think is good, for what God actually says is good. I want to kind of give you guys this feedback too on like we talked about the spiritual aspect, but we know that faith and works go together. So you sitting and praying is wonderful. But there are some things that have to go along with that you partner your prayers with, that you partner your faith with. So what are some of the practical tips for being a safe place, Sheena, you for your husband, and your children, and Marsha, for your children. And I know you and your son's father also have a friendship as well, but also to be a safe place as that blending happens. So we're praying. What are some of those practical things that are happening too?
I try to make sure that, and I think things are a little different now because Ashley is older. Mm-hmm. But I try to make sure I had a life lesson, like as it pertains to the relationship. There was a once upon a time that Ashley's mom and I were at least cordial, per se. Like a time where I honestly tried to give the benefit of the doubt in thinking that we were kind of progressing and able to talk and able to co-parent. But what I figured out is that it was the time that was used that she didn't necessarily, there wasn't really any co-parenting going on for the both of us in our house. It was only a dialogue and communication between her and I, which still excluded my husband. Now, because I was in a place to where I thought, okay, this is progress, this is good, you know, at least there's some kind of communication. It created a dynamic in my house to where he felt like that's not how it goes. Like, you can't just talk to you and still exclude, like she can't just have a relationship and communication with you and not do the same with me. You know what I mean? So it wasn't until that kind of like brought itself to a head, like whenever something happened and I made, you know, she was mad or it just blew up, then I was able to see that was kind of like a trick. You know what I mean? So it's a good question that you asked, like, what's a safe place for him? Because I felt like I didn't really, it opened my eyes to make sure I was really listening to what he had to say. Listening to what he had to say and his input, because I mean, he was at this way before me, you know what I mean? But creating a safe place for him to be able to talk and be heard, and not me just like, you need to do this or y'all need to be, me being the moderator in between. Like, I needed to make sure that we were on the same page, make sure that anybody on the outside of here knows that if there's a problem with him, there's a problem with me. Like, we don't come separated. We come as a package. We come as husband and wife. We're as one. So there's no kind of getting to me or talking to me, but excluding him. So I think I kind of played a part in creating a place where he didn't feel like I like really heard him. You know what I mean? So I had to make sure that in anything that's going on, that I have his back. He knows that he has my full support. I have his back in whatever we're gonna do. If he makes a decision, then he has my full support. I also have to make sure that, like you said earlier, that in those times where I could just be like, because I never really had the issue of him like necessarily like siding or allowing something to go on with Ashley, but I might, in the quiet times that I should be quiet and really trying to hear him, might be telling him, no, you need to call and do this, or why we got to sit back over there? Why does she have to, you know, like, I had to make sure that I was taking that kind of stuff to God and letting him deal with him, you know, and show him the areas and the things, the steps that he needed to put in place for our family and for Ashley, and not always be that nagging, not me and him, but me being like, this is my child, and I need you to hear, and I need her to hear. You know what I mean? Like, I would be the person being all razzled about it. I told you I'm crazy about these kids. So, I mean, for real, it'd be some knockout, dragouts, not necessarily between me and him, but me just being like, what do you mean? Like, you need to call and say this, or you need to do this or do that. So I needed to make sure I was in line to be a safe place for him to say whatever he needed to say to me, to share whatever he needed to share with me, his feelings and how he felt, and to not be like in his ear about stuff that was at the end of the day irrelevant. You know what I mean? To make sure that he was okay and to know that he has my full support. He don't need to be fighting both of us. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like, fighting her because of something, but then he don't need to be fighting me because I'm like, well, what we ought to do and what we need to do, and if it was left up to me, I might have taken Ashley a long time ago, packed up in a little bag, and never came back, you know. When it came to him and her, but I mean, it's real talk. Like I had to get to a place to where I thought, okay, I could listen to what he had to say and really take it hard and know that we are one. At the end of the day, we are one. And we have to be on the same page when it comes to raising her. We have to be on the same page when it comes to making decisions for her. And I can't be like people on the outside when it comes to him. I have to make sure he has a safe place to be like, he can talk about his concerns. He can make decisions about her, and it's okay. So, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does.
Okay.
It does. Marsha, how do you strike that balance between, protecting your child, again, who's now a man, so he probably don't want me being like child, but protecting him, but also understanding the role that you now play, continue to be his mother, but that there's a different layer now to your family. How do you make that safe for everyone?
I think it started out with really having like a good conversation with Big Tyson, and it wasn't something that I felt like we had to keep rehashing. I think we all went to breakfast one morning and we were sitting, down and just kind of talking, and it kind of went back to the conversation that we had when I was pregnant with Tyson. That's when Big Tyson and I decided that we weren't going to be together. And our conversation then was, I'm not going to chase you. I'm not going to hound you. I'm not going to court. I'm not doing I didn't want to do that. Like I never wanted to have the struggle about, child support and just all of that drama. And so I gave him my word and said, like, I'm not going to do that. We're not going to have that. And whatever, like you said, whatever much part that I can play in that, I'm committed, to doing that. And so even when we had the conversation about him getting married, because we were moving into a different, phase of, now still co-parenting a semi-adult, child. And I told him, I said, it's the same thing. I'm not going to, you got your new family now, but you still have responsibilities of what we have to do. And I'll play my part. And so sometimes it may feel a little one-sided because I have to be the one, kind of keeping things in order, saying when this is due and I got to make, I pretty much brief him on, what's going on. And a lot of people are like, well, you going extra miles and tying yourself in knots and doing, all of this while he gets to go and do that or whatever. But that works for us. And I'm okay with that because I realize it keeps things between me and him cool. Even when it comes to like the realizing that there is stuff that Tyson needs that I will never be able to give him because I'm not a man.
Wow.
And I hear people saying this all the time, that you can raise a young man and he can be decent and honorable and go on and live a productive life. But I am convinced, not because it's Marsha's way, because that's the way God designed it. He needs a relationship with his father. And anytime because of my feelings unresolved or whatever I feel about it, if I prevent them from having the relationship that they need to have, then I'm preventing Tyson from getting what he needs. And this, it came a time where he wanted to go and live with his dad because it was something that he needed. So I had to do that, and part of that time was when he was dating Margarita and they were all living together. And I would have moments when I felt some kind of way, they over there playing Happy Home and I'm here, by myself. But I had to realize that that was what he needed at that time. And also reassure him that you're not going to have any drama out of me. I'm the same. I'm still going to try to be, the same as I've been, all of these years. We can't get to the end of the, he's
Right.
technically an adult. I'm like, we can't get to the finish line and faint,
Right.
like, and just stuff started fire. So I think it was, if I don't know how to explain this, but I think it freed him up to know that the dynamic that we had worked, all these years would not change. I made it a point to go to Thanksgiving dinner yesterday because I knew it was more than just Thanksgiving dinner. Does that make sense?
Right.
It was more than just like, oh, I'm showing up, whatever, and bump what everybody else got to say. When I went to, people were like, are you going to the wedding? Yeah. And then I started like, well, am I okay? Am I, do I feel so, letting people's perception of what it is and just be consistent in finishing what I started. Like, we gonna get through this, and I'm gonna still try to maintain, be the Marsha that I'm trying to be, this whole time. And I think that it has given him some space. Like, when we talk now, we catch up, everything that's going with, with Lil Tyson, and I make a point to always, how's Margarita? How y'all doing? What y'all got, going on or whatever. But then still, not being like, well, what they got, what y'all got, trying to be known in their business, ask to be cordial, but don't be slick, don't try to be, on the slide doing stuff. So it's just really, and I wanted to do that for him. I wanted to, because this was something I think we shared at the single mother chat. I wanted to give him that respect because things haven't always been perfect, but he's always tried to respect me. And I owed him that much to do that. He never, people have the like baby daddy dipping back with the baby mama, but still doing, he never did that to me. Even when during a time where he probably could have, but he never did that. And so I owed him, that much respect to make sure that whatever I could do to participate in it not being rough for him, to do that. So it's just being consistent, I guess. That's the best way I could say it.
I think for us, it's been for me to learn to honor the choices that Lewis makes in the midst of this, even if I disagree, because if I call his choices into question, I also have to call into question like his choice in choosing me too. So not being so critical of choices that sometimes he is forced to make, not necessarily that he wants to make, but then also to help him and both Janiyah realize, and again, she's 18 now too in college, like I am never going to force anyone to choose. And my behavior needs to match that fact that I am not going to say it's me or her or me or them or come over here or don't ever come, like, but your flesh might be feeling that way, like to give these ultimatums so you can protect yourself, but really being, open and available for reconciliation at all times. And to make an environment where Janiyah can become the best woman that she can be, because I do have a part in that, and to realize how important that part is was, like I said, a huge revelation for me. It's not just about, I'm here when she comes to visit. We have a legitimate relationship that she shares things with me, and we love each other. There's all kinds of things, and if I love her and I love the man who helped create her, Janiyah did not choose who her parents were going to be and how they would relate or not relate to each other. So just being respectful of the choices that people make, and reminding myself that some things don't have anything to do with me, and that, I'm not on everybody's mind when they're making decisions. So that has been something that has really been a growth point. And we have just a few minutes left. So what I want you guys to kind of give is, if women need help or accountability to kind of walk through this walk, whether they are a wife that's entering into a situation, or if they're dating someone who has children, or if, the father of their children is now contemplating marrying someone or has married someone, what would be just, the final words that you want to give to them to empower them through this?
I would say that to even get to that place is that when you are in that situation, when you are in this seat, when you are in the seat of having a child come in, whether it's your child or whatever, we have to get to a place. The main thing for me is to realize that it is not about us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about us. It's all about, it's not about stepmom, bonus mom, mom, dad. It is about the child that is involved. If we could all get to the place to know that it's about, that's what it's about. It's about coming together. It's about making whatever we have to do, work, figure it out, maintain it. I mean, almost like just literally put it to the side for the sake of being able to raise this child and blend this child and give them the best opportunity that they can get from all of the people involved, all the adults involved. It's not about us.
I would say that realize that grace has dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
Grace enables you to do things in situations where you feel like there is no possible way. That is giving grace the space to operate in its fullness. I think sometimes we limit grace to this, like, oh, I did this, but the Lord, kind of, we get grace and mercy confused. I'll say that. But there is first, I would say it's possible. I don't care what you see on TV. I don't care how many baby mama memes. I don't care how many, that kind of stuff that you see. You have to believe that it is possible to, no matter the situation, how the child came into the situation, it is possible for it to be amicable.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible. And I think that has to be your mindset. Now, is it going to be easy? No. But do you believe that it's possible? Have you drank so much of the world's Kool-Aid that you think that there's no way for it to work? And it's like you said, you're going to have to die to your flesh. You're going to have to keep your mouth shut sometimes. You're going to have to realize you can't control everything. And if that does happen, if something, by the way, goes, grace covers that too. So it's even back to that, like, seize the grace that God made available to you. He is not surprised that you're in that situation, and he wants to help you. But you have to you have to allow him to help you and guide you in walking through it. So it's possible, and seize grace. Those would be my two things.
I would just want to ditto what both the ladies have already said, and just to be mindful of that God tells us to set a guard over our hearts, because that's where the issues of life flow from. And just to be cognizant of what you are operating in and what you are bringing and adding or taking away from whatever the situation may be, because at the end of the day, you are the only person whose heart you can set a guard over. You can't do it for anybody else, only you. And to really be open and honest for God, again, to heal some of those places that have been wounded, that have been hurt, that have been frustrated, that have been angry. Allow God into that place for the betterment of the child or children that may be involved. I know this was really kind of short because we could probably go on and on. And we will actually be having this discussion, continuing it next year in Nashville at our conference, because I know that there are questions that you want to ask and different things. This is something, again, that we have approached from very different angles tonight. Even though both Sheena and I are married, my husband and I don't have any children other than our baby. He's now grown up. Sheena does, and then Marsha, from Marsha's perspective. So I want you to feel comfortable. If you have questions, you can email us at info@wivesinwaiting.com. And we'd be happy to pray with you, pray for you, add you to our prayer list, because this is not easy. Even if you have a situation that's a little more smoothed out with your blending, it still requires prayer, because the enemy will attack anything that looks like God. So thank you for joining us tonight. We'll be back next month with something that you guys have asked for as well. But I appreciate you joining us with your Friday night, especially after Thanksgiving, and Sheena for sacrificing her time with her family, and Marsha, her single lady Friday night, giving it to us. We love you, ladies, and we will see you soon. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
All right.